Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're so excited to have you here tonight. My name is Madison. I am a holistic nutritionist for Ancient and Brave. For those of you who may be newer to the brand, Ancient and Brave is a UK-born, female-founded, mission-driven wellness company with an award-winning range of collagens, blends, and supplements built around supporting whole body health through simple daily rituals. Ancient and Brave is also one of the highest scoring B Corp supplement brands in the UK and one of the fastest growing wellness brands in the space, with a strong focus on balancing people, planet, and profit. At its core, the brand brings together ancient wisdom and modern science, with an emphasis on consistency, simplicity, and doing less, but doing it well. What's interesting is that this philosophy is actually quite countercultural right now, in a space that often tells us to do more, optimize more, and try more all the time. For me, that's what personally drew me to the brand. This idea that returning to simple ancient rituals is actually quite rebellious in the modern age. So today we're exploring foundational wellness for living bravely alongside 4 incredible experts in the space. And just to note, we'll leave some time at the end for questions. If you could just hold your questions till the end, that would be awesome. So I'm so excited to be joined alongside this group of incredible women. Some introductions to start off. First, we have Jo Woodhurst. She is the VP of Nutrition and Education at Ancient and Brave. Jo is a naturopathic nutritional therapist and has been woven into the fabric of Ancient and Brave since the brand was just finding its feet, helping to shape not just its nutritional voice and products, but its entire wellness ethos. She is best known for holding ancestral health wisdom and modern science in the same hand, finding where the two have drifted apart and using that tension to offer something genuinely useful, which is wellness advice that feels both deeply rooted and rigorously grounded. Next, we have Donna James. Donna is a triple certified nutritionist and author of The Archetype Diet. She has advanced training in functional medicine and cognitive behavioral therapy. Her work explores the intersection of nutritional biochemistry, hormones, and the psychology of self-worth. She has also partnered with Ancient and Brave as a gut health expert, most recently joining us for the launch of True Biome at our LA pop-up earlier this year. And next we have Pamela Edwards Christiani. Pamela brings a very unique lens through beauty, style, and astrology, shaped by over 17 years in magazine publishing, including her time as an editor at Essence, People, and the Oprah magazine. Her work today centers on guiding women in self-expression and personal transformation, using beauty and style as tools for deeper self-understanding and connection. Each experience she creates is both intuitive and psychological, offering women a more meaningful way to explore who they are and how they want to show up in the world. And finally, we have Dr. Ariana Medazadeh. She is a pharmacist and functional nutrition expert specializing in women's health, hormones, and gut health, with a background in neurology. Her work sits at the intersection of science and everyday life, translating complex research into practical, sustainable approaches that women can actually follow. She's known for cutting through the noise of modern wellness, offering guidance that feels both evidence-based and accessible, and empowering women to take a more confident, informed approach to their health. Thank you, ladies, for joining. So to begin, I'd love to zoom out for a moment. We are at a bit of a crossroads with wellness, it feels like, at the moment. On one end, we're seeing rising rates of chronic illness and real health challenges. And on the other hand, we have more wellness tools, protocols, and access to information than ever before, to the point that it's creating overwhelm and what some might call wellness fatigue. So curious, what is your honest read on where we are right now? Is all of this noise and wellness culture actually making us healthier?
Let's start. Hi everybody, it's lovely to see you all. I'm so glad, first of all, that you're all here, and second of all, that you brought this to light, Madison, because I think it's such an interesting topic right now in the wellness space. I definitely think wellness is going through a bit of a burnout zone at the moment, and it comes at a time when information is all at our fingertips, and what we're hearing from our audience time and time again is that people are feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling that they don't know how to look at the information that they're given and how to apply it to their lives anymore. And truly, I can understand why. I've trained in nutrition, I've been in the wellness space for a long time. I'm finding a lot of this information overwhelming. So I think it comes down to pulling it back to simplicity, to trying to understand what we truly need and what those foundations in wellness are. And I think the foundations often get almost like a disclaimer often when we talk about new wellness ideas or protocols or ingredients or supplements. The caveat is, but you've got to have your foundations in check. But nobody has that conversation about how hard that actually is when you look at what foundations really are, what our ancestors set out for us and what our ancestral health patterns are built on. If we really truly address all the foundations every day, that's really difficult without going further and optimizing more and perfecting all the time. So I think it's a really important conversation to have today, and interested to hear how you ladies are seeing it right now too.
I'll offer a slightly different take, but I also want to say thank you everybody for coming out. You guys know that New York has been my home, and there's a number of my clients here, and it's so good to see you in person. I haven't seen you guys in a while, and it's just nice to be here. And so I completely agree with what Joe is saying here. I think it's really going back to those foundational principles. There's another side to it that when I look at AI and health, you can become more educated. So when my clients come to me after loading in labs into AI, I can have a much more collaborative conversation with them about what's the direction that they want to take. So I think that that's a really good way to prioritize your health. The other thing would be things like trackers, like a wearable like this. So I'll use Whoop as an example. I know that if I get consistent sleep, the basics, if I'm keeping my alcohol in check, and I'm not eating late in the evening, I'm going to get a better score. And so you're sort of gamifying some of these foundational principles. And so if your behavior changes because of the data that you have, then it's moving you in that direction of health. If, however, the number is frustrating for you, just like the number on the scale, then we sort of need to look at, well, why is that number so important to you? So it comes down to what's the behavioral change that you take from all of this information, and overall, prioritize. Because when I see things on Instagram or even get reports back from AI, nothing's prioritized. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what's your top 1 or 2 things that you are focusing on, and that's the lead. That's how you develop your supplement protocol. That's how you design the diet around things. It's not what everybody else is doing on the algorithm.
Thank you all, and thank you. I completely agree with that. I think so much of it has to do with self-awareness, because there's so much noise that I think if you don't have a understanding of what you need internally, then it's hard to know what you're looking for, perhaps. So I do agree, you've got to prioritize what's really important to you. Is it balancing time and having more time with your family? Is it your mental health? Is it weight loss? Is it a combination of things? And I think once you know what your goals are, then you can use these incredible tools and these incredible technologies to enhance your life. But I think it all starts with you, because everything is not for everyone.
Yeah, I think our current wellness landscape has really empowered us, especially as women, because I think women are like the #1 target of the wellness industry in general, just because when we go to the doctor's office, we all see MDs because that's what our insurance covers. But we don't get the time that we need with our medical doctor, and we don't get to explore different topics like supplements or creatine or collagen. And so I think that finding that information online is so empowering, and it gives us so much knowledge and validation that other women are going through the same things, or that we want the answers to the same things. But it also has created this culture where we think we need like a 14-step routine, right, for our wellness, and that's like furthest from the truth. You just need to stick to the basics, and that can be applied to anything, relationships, business, whatever it is. If you don't have a stable foundation, anything else you sprinkle on there is not going to be sustainable,
Yeah, totally.
So we've kind of covered it, but I'm curious from each of your perspectives, where do we go from here? With the age of information, all of the noise, where do you guys see the next stage of wellness really going?
Well, exactly what we just said. I think whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, the last thing you want to do is add more things, and that goes with anything that's in your life. So it is about really getting real with what you need to address. And I absolutely love what you said about that personalized approach to your own goals. Because when we really look at our own wellness, we really kind of try to check in with ourselves and understand what we want to maybe work on or improve, or things that don't feel quite right. Often there's quite a long list. When I talk to people, they're like, well, I feel bloated, I've got brain fog, I've not got energy. There's many, many things that we want to address, but we can't address them all at once all the time. So often it's, what is that one thing that's going to make all the other things maybe feel a bit easier? Or what's that one thing that's really going to move that dial for you? And then start there. Doesn't mean the rest is going to get left behind. You've got somewhere to start to then build upon and keep moving forward. And then I think the temptation is to try and fix that thing. But actually, I think it's maybe just get curious about what that thing is telling you, about your life load, about how you're approaching your wellness. And I think when we look at all what we think the foundations are, and for me, the foundations are sleep and rest as one, connection and community, nutrition, obviously, nature, and within that, I believe, like light is within nature, seasons, rhythm, that sits there too. What haven't I had? There's six that I want to go there. And movement and challenge, which I think is really important as well. That physical stress that we get from the challenge of a sauna, for example, not just the challenge of moving our bodies. And so when we look at all those foundations and really have an audit, it's not another stick to beat yourself with, but have an audit of what might be missing from what I'm doing in my day-to-day, what can't I quite address all the time, and then just focusing on there a little bit. The idea of balance isn't that everything has to be just so, that everything doesn't have to be all addressed, but it's a response. It's looking at what might need a little bit more attention, a little bit more love, and then focusing on that for a bit until the next cup needs filling and that needs a bit more attention, and then moving on. So it's that constant kind of checking in, I think, but in a really gentle, sort of compassionate way.
Yeah, I'm sort of similar to Joe in that perspective. I'm sort of doing this when I'm working with my clients, I'm doing a scan over the basics. And so my tiers go sleep first, then diet, then movement, then beliefs, and then looking at little things like sort of biochemical changes, hormones, and so forth. So it's in that triangle like that. And where is it that you feel like you're out of balance? So maybe your diet is great, maybe your exercise is good, and your sleep is great too, but you've got some limiting beliefs around things. So you're really challenged in your current relationship, maybe at home and in the office, and that's what needs a little bit of reprocessing. Maybe you're so stimulated by the New York City environment and you haven't given yourself any downtime, and it's that focus. Like, this is a great space, is that you come in here, when you walk in here, you can just smell the incense and you drop into that. The lighting's different. And so you just look at each areas, like Joe was saying, what is one thing that you can do to just shift things for yourself? And so the bigger question of, where's it going? I think it's more personalized. I think it's this out of this randomized controlled trials, because they take a long time, into what is it about me? Like, how am I responding? And we saw a big thing on Instagram over the last 2 weeks about women with PMDD and other things taking Pepcid and Allegra and just really reducing their symptoms from that. And stuff like this is going to continue. And so this is what Adriana was saying, is you have this portal of education. And so you can take what resonates with you and experiment with it. Did it work for you? If it did, great. That's fantastic. And so that's where I think we're going.
Well, I'm just hoping that this industry becomes a little bit more embodied and more embedded, so that whether it's your housing or your healthcare or your environment or the relationships you have, so that wellness is like just infused there. It's not something you like go out to get. The way we're educated. And I do feel like there's so many, because of AI, everything's happening so quickly. And I do think it's possible, actually, that almost every aspect of our lives could be improved if wellness were just in there, like a sandwich, like just, So whether your child, again, whether it's education or your workspace or the environment you live in. I was reading a little bit about, real estate wellness, and that's fascinating to me. I have a friend who's a commercial developer, and she's looking at developing, it's when you think senior living, this is not senior living like, this is, sort of village. The whole thing is set around everyone supporting everyone, because they're taking like Blue Zone, the attributes that make you live longer and live happier and healthier. So I guess when I read that, I thought, wow, that's great. If people are actually trying to design how we live so that our entire neighborhood or community is more wellness friendly, I hope that's the direction that we're going in.
Yeah, I think it's leaning more towards like biological literacy. So we're tracking things more like your watch, right? We're tracking our cycles as women. Women are becoming more educated on their bodies and their hormones. And it's not just like tracking sleep or your steps, so you're also tracking if the wellness you're doing is working for you and your biological makeup. I have a girlfriend who, she like swears by wheatgrass and she runs 3 miles a day and she looks great and it works well for her. If I did that, I would honestly die. So it's just like, you have to see what works for you, and there's so much wellness information online, but just track how your body responds. And then I also think we're leaning towards an age of skepticism, but like healthy skepticism. Just because we see someone selling us something online, like colostrum or just, a greens powder, like these trendy supplements online, we are actually asking questions like, no, what is the mechanism? Like, how is this actually working in my body? And also, when you see a supplement that has amazing ingredients in it, people are starting to ask, like, is this the right dose, though, for it to clinically have an effect in my body? Or are you guys just sprinkling this in for marketing, which so many brands do? So I think it's definitely leaning towards that. People are really waking up, and instead of just following these trends, they're asking, well, what about me? And like, what about my health and my makeup?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like there's a real opportunity in where we're at as, a society and as women to, like, within all of the information, to really take our health back into our own hands and kind of approach our health in this kind of energy of self-empowerment. It's like educating and simplifying, but it's true. Like, we do have an opportunity to really educate ourselves and figure out what really works for our own bio-individuality. So, love that. So within all of these foundations, I'm curious, are there any, besides like sleep and regulating the nervous system, which is very important, but what do you guys kind of come back to in terms of any supplements that you love or any ingredients that you kind of see as like non-negotiables? No matter what else is happening in your life, you always come back to these foundations.
All the foundations. But one that I've really come back to recently is the connection and community one, in terms of the bigger picture foundations. It really came down to, there's a study out there, it's called the Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest running studies ever. It spans 80 years, so decades and decades of research across generations of families. And what they looked at is the best setup for health and wellness across an age span. And when they looked at all the different things, they looked at bloods, they looked at biomarkers, they looked at career paths, they looked at money. One thing that it came back to was the strength of your relationships. And it hit me so hard, because at that point, I've always been a relationship girly. I love a good connection with people, and my friends and family mean a lot to me, but I didn't go unnoticed that when I'm deeply into my wellness as well, a lot of that feels quite singular. I was doing my own yoga classes. I was making sure that, I was looking after myself in lots of different ways. It did feel quite individual. And when I look at the wellness industry, a lot of that also feels quite individual. And when I look at our modern world and our culture and society, we have got these separate lives now, and a lot changed after COVID where we had to be separate at that time. So when I think about wellness now, and when I'm coming back to what the foundations that I'm working on currently is, sometimes there'll be days, and consistency is key, obviously, with wellness, but sometimes there'll be days where I don't do the workout and I hang out with my kid instead, because I know that connection is so important to both of us. Similar with friends, I know that my sleep's really important, and you'll find me in bed at 9 o'clock on most nights, but if it's a night where I get to spend an extra few hours with my friends having that extra glass of wine, I'm going to take it, because essentially doing the wellness stuff shouldn't get in the way of the life itself. It's part of it, right? It should help us engage with life a little bit more. So we mustn't get so caught up in the wellness world that we forget to actually live the life. So that's what I focus in on. We're thinking about supplements. Obviously, I can talk for a long time about supplements, being with the brand for such a while. But we think as well with the foundations, we often think is in the terrains. So we have the gut terrain, which is a really important one to me. So I'm always thinking about how to support the gut with a supplement. And our Tree Biome is my absolute favorite product for that, which we might get into in a bit more detail later. But then we think of the structural terrain, so that's where the collagen comes in. We need structural terrain to really help us move through life. It creates that foundation of strength and vitality for us. And then the energy terrain is something that I'm really interested in, which is where I find things like creativity really helpful. So again, there's different kinds of ways of looking at what foundations and supplements look as well.
What I like about the social connection is social connection is us a similar reward to food, money, and sex. It's evolutionary. And I was studying at behavioral psychology at Harvard, and I had a project to do. And in that was I had to connect socially with people. And it was very interesting, my response. I split my time between Europe and here, and I hadn't caught up with some of my New York girlfriends in a while. And I had this hesitation and trepidation about making the phone call, because I knew the phone call was going to take an hour. And plus, because I'd be gossiping about things. And it was really intriguing to clock that. Obviously, when I had the phone call, it was amazing, and felt really nourishing, and I felt alive. And I was like, wow, we have this mismatch that's going on, whereas we don't even understand the pleasure we will sometimes get from something like social connection, and then we don't engage in it. And I was like, there's two parts of the brain. I think we also don't necessarily understand that. There's a reward piece, which is the craving piece, and then there is this pleasure and liking piece. And they're split. And so you can have a mismatch, just like I did with the social connection. And so it reminded me, go out of my way to engage with people, because it does feel really good and nourishing afterwards. And in this city, we get too busy, although it's also easy to catch up with people here. So from a supplement perspective, I'm often working on various microbiomes, whether that is the gut microbiome, the nasal microbiome, skin microbiome, or so forth. But a lot of people are coming to me, being a nutritionist, focusing on their digestive health. And one supplement that I've added in relatively recently, over the last 4 months or so, is True Biome by Ancient and Brave. And what I like about this product, and so my clients know it because I've mentioned it to them, is it is a prebiotic and postbiotic. It is not a probiotic. So the probiotic slots in to the middle of that. And from a prebiotic perspective, this is your fiber. It is a low FODMAP fiber called PHGG. And so if you do have digestive issues, it's not one that's going to make you bloated. And when I trialed it, I said to Ancient and Brave, if somebody's going to react to it, I will. And I didn't. And unbeknowingly to me, I had a parasite at the time. So even with the parasite, I didn't get bloated on the True Biome. So that prebiotic is going to support it's the fuel, as you know, for the gut microbiota. And then it contains glutamine. Glutamine helps nourish the intestinal lining in the small intestine to prevent that leaky gut, keeps that barrier function in check. And then it has a postbiotic in it. And so this postbiotic is actually a heat-treated probiotic, but it's dead. So it doesn't act like a probiotic. Instead, it has immune modulating effects. And so your gut is sandwiched between two immune layers. And some of you may know this, like 70% of your immune system is in the gut. And so when you're like, oh my goodness, my stomach is bloated, or you're stressed and your stomach is bloated, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a parasite or bad bacteria. It can just be a stressor response, and there's some inflammation happening in the gut. And so this postbiotic helps to rebalance the immune system in the gut. And beyond the gut, if you have things like eczema and psoriasis, or you're finding that there's a flare-up of Epstein-Barr, or you got SIBO, this particular postbiotic helps to rebalance the immune system. So I'm really adding it into a lot of my clients' protocols in addition to a probiotic.
My father's 92 years old, and it dawned on me that I feel like at the end of our lives, like all you have are your memories. So if that's going to be super important, then how am I spending quality time with the people that matter the most to me? So I'm agreeing with what you both said. It's like, you got to take the call, you got to make the effort, because that's going to matter more than the new bag and even the promotion. I think in the end, I think no one dies wishing they went to work more, and you get it. Okay, so memories. And then if we're going to talk about supplements, it's funny, when I was an editor, I was much younger, and we were always talking about Botox and this and this and that and the other, and I was getting all these things that I did not need because I was 32 years old or whatever. And now that I'm not an editor and I'm 57 years old, like, I need everything. But I also don't have the patience or energy to deal with makeup and 1,000, skincare routines. So, I mean, this lipstick's for you. Like, I haven't worn lipstick since, I think, Christmas. So for me, it's just hands down, it's collagen. And I think it's because it's not just for your skin and your hair and nails, but because it's so much for your joints and your bones and your muscles. And there's just so much, like, I think almost 30%, you guys have to correct me because I'm not the scientist. I think almost 30% of your body is naturally made of the collagen protein. Is that correct?
It's the most abundant.
The most abundant. There you go. Yeah. That's right. And if it's decreasing, starting in your 20s, then clearly we want to take advantage of replenishing that. But I also understand we have quality collagen, hydrolyzed, correct? Because that's going to absorb better. You not only, if you have a supplement that's really good, like Ancient and Brave, many different options, you're not only going to help to fortify and put some collagen back, but it also operates as like in a preventative way. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
What I mean is that it can stop some of the breakdown that's also happening naturally. So it's like you get two things by taking a collagen supplement, and it's so simple. You take the one that works for you. I think it's easy to just put it in a shake or a glass of water and move on. So those are my foundations. Memories and collagen.
Yeah, I would have to say my foundations there's so many great supplements out there, but there's also supplements that have tons of research behind them, and that's what originally drew me to Ancient and Brave, their creatine and also their collagen. So I love to use collagen at nighttime. I know a lot of people use it in the morning, but your body does its deepest repair every single night from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So before sleep, I like to drink my collagen drink that I'm obsessed with, and I mix it with some warm water and lemon. And collagen not only helps with your skin, your hair, your nails, we know it has tons of beauty benefits, but it also helps with your sleep because it contains glycine, and it also helps strengthen your gut barrier. So it's really great for inflammation. I feel like when I work with women and also when I speak to other women, a really huge issue that we're having right now is inflammation, and they're very surprised when I tell them collagen is one of the best things you can be using, just because it does strengthen that gut barrier so you don't have any inflammation leaking out into your bloodstream. And then the second one is, of course, creatine. And creatine started out as a gym bro supplement. And I feel like I first heard of creatine in college when I would see these guys drinking creatine at the gym. I was like, oh my God, what is that? But creatine is actually very foundational for women of all ages, because it gives us energy. It helps with brain fog, with any type of memory type related issues. And it also helps with our energy levels, with muscle health, with bone health, which is very important because as we get older, women are at higher risk for osteoporosis. So when you think about supplements, always think about, you have your foundational supplements, and then you have supplements that you take because you're deficient in something. And your foundational supplements should always be supplements with a lot of peer-reviewed research and clinical trials behind it, because you know it's really working in your body.
Thanks for that nighttime tip.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you my recipe. It's so good.
Yeah, thank you. So this leads me into my next question. So knowing all these foundations is one thing, but you guys all come from very different backgrounds. You have very unique experiences when it comes to wellness, and you're each bringing something very unique and different to the table. So within each individual lines of work, where do you see your clients or people or women, where do you see them really struggling the most?
I think it's truly understanding themselves, honestly. I think that's where practitioners can be really supportive, because you can give them that time and space to really nail down exactly what's been going on for them, to map out their full health history, which who gets the opportunity to do that ever, see the patterns that are emerging. So I think it comes from probably living lives that are super overwhelming, super busy, super full, that we actually forget what we need and really forget how to listen into our bodies. I think things like trackers can be really amazing. Data is really important, but it can also mean that for some people, they find it more difficult to listen to themselves, to really listen into exactly what they need. That body literacy kind of conversation we were having before as well. I think we're losing that body literacy. Like, what do my symptoms mean for me? What are the messages my body's trying to tell me? Because that's how the body speaks. It can't tell you directly all the time. It has to speak in symptoms and signs. And when you know what those signs are pointing to, it's really empowering to say, oh, I understand that this is what my body needs right now. But if you don't know what those signs are telling you, it can be really discombobulating. You don't know where to turn. So then you look to the supplement stack, you look to the protocols, you look to try all the things, so you're not quite sure what's going to work. And often we either don't give things enough time, so we move on to the next thing really quickly and go, well, that didn't work, I'm going to try the next thing and add that in. Or we add lots of things on top of each other and they all kind of compete against each other. So again, just for me, it's knowing thyself, trying to strip it back and just piece things together that's going to work for you. And sometimes you'll need a little bit of a guidance to be able to do that, and that can be found by people that you really trust or by working really closely with a practitioner.
But even as a practitioner, I still have guides. I still see people because you have all this information. And so when you're assessing it yourself, sometimes you're not entirely sure. And it's nice to just give that feedback and for them to reflect back and say, this is where I think the priority should be. So I think that's a great point. So you can tell we've trained in a similar way. Because I agree with Joe. Is that with all of this information coming out, it does feel very prescriptive. It's I need to eat the 100 grams of protein. I need to eat 30 grams of protein. I hear it all the time. And then women are also saying, it makes me feel nauseous. So at what point do you pause and say, maybe this protocol isn't for me? On that note, can I share something? Do we have time? So the 30 grams of protein, that was based on one study in 2014 with 8 people, 5 men, 3 women, that lasted 7 days. And so you can see just what happens when there's a little bit of fire, and that's how the algorithm works, right? Just keep showing this information. So if something doesn't feel good, don't keep pushing it. Where I try to get my clients to focus is on what you said before. It's actually nervous system regulation. Because if we're in this hypervigilant, chaotic state, everything's constricted. Nothing's really flowing. You're not necessarily going to see any of those successes, no matter how many supplements you actually put in. So taking the time to do a little bit of breath. You can come to these probably classes here where there's probably a breathwork class. There's quite a number of them in the city. Even doing simple belly breathing before bed for 3 minutes is really just going to drop your nervous system and give you this deeper level of sleep. If you haven't done a lot of breath, I just suggest taking a class. If you don't like it, take another class. And just really try to incorporate that. It's the quickest way to just calm. There are many other modalities. There's dance, there's singing, there's those things.
So now I'm an astrologer and a stylist, and those things have nothing to do with each other. But what I will say is this. I find that in astrology, we say as above, so below. But you can also say, as within, so without, because the way you think and your values and your experiences do impact on how you see the world. So what I love about being an astrologer and what I find that my clients want is they want more information about themselves so that they can have more grace with themselves, so they understand where their challenges are, so they understand. Also, astrology is so much about timing. They understand how to work with the stars, so to speak. So really, it's more information. And that's what most women want, or not just women, I have all men and women for my astrology clients. Now, for my stylist clients, they happen to all be over 45, mostly very successful women. And what I find, like one client, she said she had to pay alimony, and it was just, and she had 2 kids, so she was like, I have paid the alimony, my kids are graduated from college, there's no reason why I can't look good. Like she just, she goes, I run marathons, I have the body I want, and I don't have any time or interest in buying clothes. I get it. So I think also too, is that this is more exterior. I think people want their exterior to reflect their interior. Yes. So I do think that in both ways, you're helping people just to embody that, be more themselves. So I hope I answered the question. Yeah. Okay.
I think people know what they need to do, but I think consistency and actually sticking to it is a huge hurdle that people have to get over. And I wish I had an easier way to say this, or just this magic plan for everyone to follow. But the reality is you need to do it. You need to have the willpower and dedicate time to your health, because oftentimes what I have noticed and what I've seen is people will go through their whole lives and they're young and they're not really taking their supplements, they don't get their blood work done, and then one day they're 45, 50, 60 years old and they run into this huge health issue, and then you're constantly at the doctor's office, you're at the pharmacy, you're on the phone with insurance, which is literal hell on earth. So if I could just give advice to all of you right now, it's to actually care about your health, and you have to make time for it, and it's not always going to be easy, and there are days where it's going to be hard to fit it into your schedule, but the good news is what you're making time for is what is working for you. You don't have to follow this crazy 20-step routine. You can stick to your foundation and what feels good for your body, and just stay consistent with that, so that as we get older, as we age, we can age gracefully, and we don't have to rely on so many other things that can cause more stress to our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of make a joke you don't go to the gym once and expect to get a nice booty, So same with the inner work and the nervous system regulation work. It's that consistency piece, which sometimes we don't really like to hear that. It's not always sexy or whatever, but it's with that consistency and devotion to self, showing up every day, because it's true, no one else is really going to do it for us unless we, find it within ourselves. So, yeah. Okay, so if someone in this room commits to one brave, honest act for their health starting today, what would you each tell them?
I do think the consistency thing is really important, actually. And just on that, I think what needs to be acknowledged is that the way that the modern world is set up right now makes that really difficult for us. And often we can turn on ourselves and see it as a self-failing if we're not getting wellness right. And I think that's where we might have lost our way with wellness in itself. It's not something to get wrong or right. It's something that should nourish you, it should empower you, it should make you feel more like you. And if it's not, then maybe that's a check-in for yourself, a bit of a message to yourself as what's going on here. And sometimes what's going on here is structurally, the modern world is not really set up for us to address those foundations really well, for us to move our bodies every day. I know today I had a really good wellness day because I'm away from home. My toddler is with her dad. I'm not at my desk, so I'm able to walk around the city for 2 hours. Never happens. My normal day, I'm in the car, I'm wrangling a toddler, I'm having to put dinner on, I'm having to be at my desk and take calls. It's really, really difficult to then fit in the Pilates class and the sauna and the cold plunge. And these things are amazing and we should definitely do them when we can. But I think the bravest act in wellness is in the ordinary things, in those little pockets of time, in that time where you can do that nervous system regulation while you're making a cup of tea. Take a few deep breaths, a moment for yourself. Know that that moment of connection with your partner or your kid is really important and helping you. Know that that meal cooked at home, that's a really big deal. It's not easy to cook from scratch anymore. So give yourself a pat on the back when that happens. Those ordinary things are so important. So don't neglect them and think that that's not wellness. And all the other stuff, the shiny bits, that's wellness. That's not true. It's in the ordinary, it's in the everyday. And yeah, I think if you go and do something brave, and it's brave, be brave enough to be a little bit extraordinary, ordinary.
I think do the scan. So go back to something like that pyramid and go, okay, what's going on with my sleep, my food, my movement, my belief system, and so forth, and think of one area that you could enhance. Because as we were just saying, it can't be a blanket statement, although I do like the idea of maybe cook a nourishing meal. Then there's probably people out here go, that's going to stress me out. I have no idea how to cook. So it's just choose one thing in those tiers and say, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to experiment with.
I do think that self-awareness is just so important because I just feel that, with all these protocols, sometimes we can't take action because we have ADHD, or we're depressed, or we have bipolar disorder, or we need an anger management class, or we need to walk in the park. Like, there are just sometimes you have to check in to know where you are internally, so then you can better stick to or commit to things on the outside. So I think when you have that foundation of, I'm taking care of my mental health, I'm taking care of my relationships, I'm fostering them so that they're healthy, I think when those things are great, then we can commit to all the other wellness and physical protocols when the internal landscape is as healthy as it can be. If I could get you all to do one thing, and this is going to sound so hokey, but just trust me on this. So I love Louise Hay. She's like a spiritual guru from the 70s, and she has this thing called mirror work. And I would love for you all for the next 30 days in the morning, when you get up, to just look in the mirror and gaze softly and look at yourself in the eye and say your name. So this is what you're going to say. So I'm going to say my name. I'm going to say, Pamela, I love you. I really, really love you. So I want to see if you all can commit to doing that for 30 days. And watch what comes up. If you think it's silly or stupid, or if you start to weep, pay attention to that, because that has something to do with your inner landscape. If you can't tell yourself you love yourself, I don't know how much room you're going to have to take care of yourself and the people around you. Or you'd have so much more, I would say, if you started with that foundation of love.
I think as women, we wear so many hats and we're doing so much. And then on top of that, we have our hormones, which are constantly changing throughout the month, unlike men who are on a 24-hour cycle. My poor boyfriend's in the crowd. But it's as women, we're always dealing with so much more, honestly, I think, than men do on a daily basis. And I think it's important for us to just give ourselves space. And at nighttime, if you can just unwind and do something good for your nervous system, whether it's a guided meditation, whether it's watching Netflix, like my form of it is literally watching Sex and the City at night. It's like all I look forward to. But do something that you genuinely just love and that you can relax to, because if you don't and you're constantly on edge, what happens is your body thinks that you're in like a state of fight or flight. And so it's going to allocate all of the resources that you could be using for healing or breaking down your food or your supplements to survival. And it's going to affect your sleep, it's going to skyrocket your cortisol. So you just want to make sure that you have those boundaries in place to make room for yourself.
Thank you. Yeah. I love that we have all really just kind of come back to the same idea that wellness doesn't have to be overly complicated. It's kind of stripping away and returning to the basics and looking to maybe what our ancestors were doing. And obviously it's not going to look the exact same as what we're doing in modern day, but what can we look at and take with us to support us in how we live our day-to-day lives. And I think that's so much about simplifying and listening more deeply, we're returning to our intuition and getting really curious. I really love to just live my life with a lot of curiosity and to stay really curious about yourself through all the different stages of your life. So thank you so much to our incredible panelists. We have room for about 2 to 4 questions in the audience. I want to gently note that we can't answer any specific medical advice, so if you could just keep your questions a little bit more broad, that would be much appreciated, but we'd love to hear from you.
Most of the research on health is on men, which it needs to change. And I think we're all quite aware now of the female health data gap. A lot of medications were based on studies on men. A lot of the nutritional studies that we rely on studied on men. Exercise, as you said. Doesn't mean it's not important for women. We still need to exercise. And I think when we understand about the women's physiology, we know how important that rest and recovery part of the exercise program is. When you look at women athletes and how they periodize their training, rest and recovery is so important because our bodies work in a lot of different ways. And I think as women, we tend just keep pushing, keep trying to, it's not working, I'm not seeing the results, I'll push further, I'll push farther. And often when I speak to clients, I'll talk about, what they're doing. They'll say, I'm doing all of it, I'm doing everything. I'm like, well, maybe that's why. Let's maybe have a day where you literally don't do anything, a true rest day, where you're not running around the house as well, trying to do all the jobs, that you're really, really resting your body. I know personally, I found that really difficult. If I have to sit still, like really still, and just sort of not have to actually what I'll do is I'll meditate now. No, that's still doing something. If I have to just be in stillness and sit still, I find that really, really difficult. So to your question, I think that there are studies coming on women in fitness, in exercise as well, but it's still a really new area because women change often over the course of a month and then our lifetime. So we're actually quite difficult to study, but that doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't be studied. In fact, I think that's even more important of a reason, because I think we're even more fascinating in our biology. So I think there's a real issue there. At Ancient and Brave, we've really noticed the issue in the female data gap in terms of supplementation as well. So we invest in clinical trials, something that's really important to the brand. And in our clinical trials, we run them on women because we want to see how you guys react to our supplements, to see when they work best for you, and to really understand women's health a lot better and add to that pool of data. So I'll start with the why it's different. So you mentioned that it's a powder form. Powder form is really important for us as a brand because we noticed that with the supplement industry, and this is not to say that capsules aren't always relevant because sometimes they can be really helpful, but within the supplement industry, what we're seeing is this massive move away from what our bodies have always intuitively known, which is to create something and then drink it or eat it. And there's physiology behind that. Taking a moment for yourself, the alchemy of making a drink, of slowing down, of that mindfulness moment, how that prepares your body to then take on board the ingredients that you're going to be ingesting is really powerful and shouldn't be neglected. And I know when I've ever taken a capsule, it's often when I'm running out the door, I'll knock it back and then kind of forget about it. So we've intentionally used powder to make sure that you guys give a moment to yourself, which is very rare and far between, but it also enhances how the product is absorbed. So that's that part of the question. Beyond that, we make sure that we have an Ancient and Brave standard as well. So everything that you'll get has third-party tested, it's clinically trialed, it's expertly formulated. So I'm a nutritionist myself, I lead a team of amazing nutritionists, and we work alongside a scientist who's all in-house. We don't outsource any of this to help create these products, to source the ingredients responsibly, to make sure it's the best form of whatever ingredient that you are looking at. If it's the magnesium or if it's the collagen, we'll make sure it's the best form for you throughout the studies and evidence that we go into. And we make sure that it's really responsible for the planet as well, because we know that we are in a relationship with planet Earth. So we need to give back, we need to be responsible for what we're doing there. And I don't really think it can be truly well and healthy without that part of the picture as well. So you've got these Ancient and Brave standards, but then beyond that, we really understand health and wellness in a different way, I think, than just trying to sell a supplement. We really want to support these brave, incredible lives that you're trying to live and try to nourish you and resource you along the way as well. So there's a lot that we put into our messaging and our education behind the products too. So I hope that answers some of your questions.
I have something else to add regarding dosage forms and delivery too with supplements. There's only so much powder that you can fit into a capsule. And then when you put powder into a capsule, you also have to put excipients into it, like magnesium stearate, or there's a bunch of different ones. And oftentimes people can have allergic reactions to them. It can irritate the gut. So I don't know if any of you have taken like generic medications, prescriptions, but sometimes it's those inactive ingredients that people are like, wait, this doesn't feel like my usual medication, right? So it's like the same thing with supplements. So powders are very versatile because you're able to just include what you want to include. Like I think the collagen has like 4 or 5 grams of collagen. And you don't have to include all of the other additives that you have to include in the capsule. Otherwise, the capsule is just going to deteriorate under humidity and pressure during the manufacturing process. So powders are typically a little bit better than capsules. It's not that all capsules are bad, because you can find clean ones too. But you have to think about the dosing as well. And with collagen and creatine, collagen you want at least 5 grams, and then creatine you want at least 3 grams. And it's easier to do that in a powder formulation.
We never have any unnecessary ingredients in there. No additives, no sugars, no sweeteners, flavors. Honestly, you don't need those things. And we can still create delicious products or products that work really, really well.
And thank you guys so much. Thank you all for joining us.